Good morning, everybody. It's your accident and injury guy, Jobeth Bowers. If I didn't talk about this crazy wind today, you'd probably think I wasn't doing these podcasts live. So today we're going to talk about all the wind that's still happening, all of the damage that it's likely done, and how to handle that in the insurance world. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. It is President's Day. I actually was not even going to do an episode this week because of the holiday. Normally, if the banks are closed and the mail's not being delivered, I take a day off or a week off from these. But this is a fresh topic because that wind is still blowing. In fact, this wind, not that I need to tell anybody here in Cecil County, this is what I came to my office today to see. That's my neighbor's yard. That is a tree completely uprooted, as you can see from the stump, and dangling on those power lines there. So Delmarva actually came out. Had I started this podcast episode 10 minutes ago, you would have heard all of the chainsaws in the background. They got out here fairly quick and cleaned all of that up, which is great because that would have probably taken down a whole block here on Main Street of power. It's my understanding that there are parts of this county that are still without power. And obviously Delmarva is going to do what they can to prioritize all of that, take care of that. Hopefully those crews are out there working and get this stuff going pretty quickly. But yes, it was pretty crazy. And as a result, a lot of people have a lot of questions because what happens when something like this happens? And instead of that tree staying in the neighbor's property and dangling on those wires, what if it comes across your property? Let's say you're close to your neighbors. This happens a lot, especially in neighborhoods. That tree from your neighbor's property comes across, hits a vehicle, hits your house, takes out part of your fence. Any of these things are possible. Who do you make the claim with? Also, we'll talk about what happens when, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of this, Cecil County, if that roof in the wind, hail, whatever it might be. Obviously, this time we're dealing with wind, but hail does a similar sort of thing, takes off parts of that roof. What do you do? Well, this week's featured business is a friend and colleague of mine. We actually sponsor a couple of events together. Well, we both sponsor some of the same events. This is Harford Roofing and Exteriors. Let's start with this piece of advice, and this is how to get in touch with Harford Roofing and Exteriors. If you got a claim that you're making with your insurance company, or you think that you're going to make with your insurance company, for example, shingles ripped off your roof, I highly recommend calling somebody like Harford Roofing and Exteriors first. Get them to come out and give you an estimate. Most of these companies will do a free estimate for you. And then look at your insurance policy. Find out what your deductible is. If that deductible is $5,000, some houses have a $5,000 deductible on this type of damage, but the repairs are only going to cost $1,200. Don't make the claim with your insurance company, because if your deductible is higher than the damages, the insurance company is not going to pay anything, and they're going to ding you with a claim even though they didn't pay dime one. So it's important to know what's on your insurance policy, to know what your deductible is, and at least have an estimate from somebody like Harford Roofing and Exteriors here that will let you know, hey, this is or isn't worth making a claim, because sometimes it's really not worth making the claim. You can save yourself a lot of hassle and long-term a lot of money. You're going to want to have those repairs made by a professional anyway, but avoid any of the negative stuff on your insurance policy if you can. So, insurance policies, let's talk about who pays for what. And this is the part of this week's conversation. This is a really short talk, but I know that it's a question that's going to come up a lot because of the wind that we're experiencing, than we experienced yesterday, and we'll probably continue to experience today, tomorrow, some of the rest of the week here. What happens when your neighbor's tree falls onto your property? Whose insurance company pays that claim? This is what's going to surprise you. You need to make that claim with your own homeowner's insurance policy. Yes, I know it seems counterintuitive because it was somebody else's tree that fell onto your property, causing this damage, but it's damage to your property and it is your claim, unfortunately. Now, some of the responsibility of removing the tree is probably going to fall on your neighbor, and that is, to clear it and remove it from that property. But any of the damage done to your property is most likely going to be covered by your insurance. Now, here are a few exceptions, which probably aren't going to come up in a situation like this with extreme wind. But let's say there is a tree that is obviously met its last day. And it is known, and you can tell just by looking at this thing, that tick-tock, it's only a matter of time till that comes down. If you do this, and let's say your homeowners association or the town or somebody within the county, you've communicated with them and said, hey, my neighbor's got this tree and it's got to go. And you probably have this conversation with your neighbor first and then escalate from there. But if somebody is putting the neighbor on notice to say, hey, this tree is a problem, it needs to come down, it's your responsibility. If all of that happens and the neighbor ignores the warnings and the requests those requests have to come from, it can't just be as simple as, hey, I don't like that tree, take it down. That's not how this works. It's got to come from somebody like a town or a homeowners association or somebody saying, this is a nuisance, this is a potential hazard, take care of it. If and only if that happens and they ignore it and then the tree comes down, that's like the only scenario in which you might, it's still not guaranteed, but you might be able to force their insurance company to pay for the damage on your property. So if you notice stuff like that, give your neighbor a heads up. Maybe they haven't noticed it. Just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's obvious to them. It's probably the only way that starts the process. That isn't the full process. It's probably the only way in which you're going to get somebody else to cover the damage that's done on your property. Otherwise, you're going to take that up with your own homeowner's insurance company. Now, they may ask you a bunch of questions. They may decide after the fact that, hey, we're going to contact your neighbor's insurance company. We're going to get them to pitch in and pay some of this damage. That's on them. You don't have any sort of control over that. You don't have any sort of decision-making power as to whether or not they've decided that it's warranted to pursue that claim. Another person that you can contact ahead of time to say, hey, there's a tree in my neighbor's yard that looks like it's going to come down. You might want to call your insurance company because they're going to be able to dig in and find out who insures the neighbors much better than you. They may communicate to that neighbor, and the insurance company for your neighbor may say, hey, buddy, if you got to take this down or there's going to be some problems. Insurance companies will do that, especially nowadays, because they've been making so many payments on so many claims for both hurricanes and tornadoes and the fires out in California. Insurance companies are looking for any opportunity to make their insured do something so that they have to pay less money. And in most of these contracts, they're allowed to do it. So if your insurance company, let's flip the script here, if your insurance company contacts you and says, hey, this tree or whatever it might be, we think it's a hazard, you need to do something about it, make sure you do something about it, or they might not pay a claim related to damage done by the thing that they warned you about. So be careful with that. These typically are not the type of case that you would need to hire an attorney to handle. So you definitely don't need to call my office for something like this. Just call somebody like a roofing expert if you've got a roof issue, or whoever it is that's going to repair the fence or whatever other damage is done. Contact who's going to do the repair first. Get an estimate, compare it to your deductible, and determine whether or not it's even worth it for you to file that claim. Because again, if the deductible is higher than the repair, you're going to pay all of it. And also, if you're not dealing with one of these situations, it may be a good time to take a look at that policy, take a look at what that deductible is, and say, hey, is this the number that I want to be responsible for? Or do I want to put more of this burden onto my insurance company? Or maybe you want the bigger deductible, because a bigger deductible means a lower premium. So those are decisions obviously you have to make, but that's one of the greatest places. Moving that deductible up or down is going to have one of the largest impacts on your premium, both with homeowners policies, renters policies, and your auto policy. Changing that deductible is going to be the biggest bang for the buck as far as money in your pocket if you're looking to save on that policy. You take more of the responsibility, they take less of your money. That's all we got for this week. Again, as always, if you've got questions, if you've got topics that you want me to talk about, shoot them up here, info@bowerslawmd.com with all of your questions. Check out our friends over there at Harford Roofing and Exteriors. I'll throw their phone number up here one more time because I'm assuming a lot of people are going to have something that they want my friends over there at Harford Roofing and Exteriors to take a look at after this weekend storms. Everybody be safe, be well out there. As always, send me all your questions. Make sure that it's clear that you want me to talk about it on the podcast. As always, we won't reveal any personal information, but it's going to tell me, hey, you're sending me this because A, you want help, and B, you want me to talk about it on the podcast. So thanks all for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. I am a sponsor and a coordinator for some local entertainment. Well, the entertainment happens locally, the acts tour all around the world. I am going to be doing a giveaway for 2 tickets to an upcoming Elkton Magic show with some amazing performers that are coming in. And they're going to be here in March. We'll talk about it more next week with next week's topic. And like I said, we're going to give away tickets to this event if we have enough people on the live stream. So make sure you are sharing this, tell a friend, have them tune in next week, 10 o'clock. And of course, if you've got questions, send them to me. Happy to talk about it. Be well, be safe out there.